You know, it's hell. I don't even know what day it is. Tuesday. It's a couple. So it's a couple of days after the semifinal playoff games: TCU, Michigan, Georgia, Ohio State, and it's really just now. I'm really starting to think back and look and you just appreciate what a great game it was, and uh, both games. I want to talk specifically about Georgia and Ohio State in this one. And look, I know this is a trash talking channel, and a lot of the things I do and say on here irritate people and rub them the wrong way and stuff like that. I'm just a diehard college football fan. I do enjoy the trash talk. To me, it's just a part of college football, but just an unbelievable game. And when you're right, and when you're wrong, you're wrong. And in the cases where you're right, you get to show up and brag, and in the cases where you're wrong, I think you have to kind of accept that too, um, and talk about those things too. And the reality is, whether anybody wants to hear it or not, whether I even want to hear it, or Georgia fans or Ohio State fans or just other college football fans in general, whoever, the reality is that Ohio State fans are right with a lot of what they're saying right now, after the game and over the last couple of days. Uh, we all hate it, but it is what it is. Um, Injuries affected this game. There's just no denying it. Um, people can say whatever they want, but there's no denying the fact that you know when you got a guy that is supposed to play and he can't play, it matters. Okay, whether we want to admit it or not. Referees. No one likes it when referees um, sort of have any real impact on the game. Now, obviously, there are penalties that have to be called and things like that. You've got to have referees, but no one likes it when a game, especially a game of this magnitude, is seen as affected by the referees in some sort of negative way against one team or positive way for another team or whatever. And the reality is, Ohio State fans are right about that too. The injuries and the refereeing and the penalties or the lack of calls or whatever you want to say in this game, there's just no denying that had an impact and an effect on the game. And even special teams like Ohio State people have been pointing out with the missed field goal. It's a 1 point game. Of course, missed field goal matters. And so trying to deny that any of those things are real or had any impact on the game is just a little bit ridiculous. And I wouldn't be, it would be disingenuous. It would be dishonest. It would just be an outright lie if I just came on here and pretended like none of that stuff mattered. Of course it mattered. Of course it mattered. So, Ohio State fans, you were right. If it wouldn't have been for all the injuries that Georgia had in this game, Georgia probably wins by 4 touchdowns. Darnell Washington, arguably our second most impactful offensive player, goes out early in the game. Ladd McConkey, our leading wide receiver this year, was playing the game at like 30%. I think he had one catch for 2 yards or something, and one of them was just a 2 point conversion. He was basically on the field just as a distraction. If he would have been 100% healthy, again, Georgia probably wins this game by 4 scores. All the outside linebackers that we lost over the course of this game, I mean, we were playing third and fourth string linebackers. I'm a huge Georgia fan. I had to Google the roster to figure out who some of these people were Georgia was putting out on the field defensively in the second half. Of course, that impacted the game. This wouldn't even have been worth watching in the second half if it wouldn't have been for all the injuries that Georgia received in this game. The Ohio State fans are just right. Injuries affected the game, period. Altered the outcome. There's no denying it. So to try to deny it is just ridiculous. Darnell Washington, Ladd McConkey, 3-4 outside linebacker, starting offensive lineman, Warren McClendon. Just the list goes on and on. I mean, Georgia was out there playing with a mash unit. Of course, injuries affected the game. Penalties. The fake punt that Ohio State pulled off and then didn't pull off because Georgia had to waste a timeout. We shouldn't have had to waste that timeout. Ohio State had 12 people on the field. Go back and look at it. Watch the replay of the game and pause it right before a ball is snapped and count the number of Ohio State players on the field for that fourth down fake punt. They had 12 players on the field. Refs didn't see it. Of course that altered the game. That left Georgia with only 2 timeouts in the fourth quarter of the game instead of 3. These things matter. These things matter. Georgia had to adopt a different style, both defensively and offensively, based on the fact that they only had 2 timeouts instead of 3. If we'd have had that third timeout in our pocket, Georgia probably wins this game by 3 or 4 scores in the end. It's no sense in denying these things that are reality. Ohio State fans are right. The injuries and the penalties drastically hampered Georgia's ability to blow out Ohio State. It's just facts. Special teams. Georgia missed 2 field goals. 2. By one of the best field goal kickers in the country. Podlesny, the guy's make percentage is huge. And the field goals that he missed weren't 60-yarders. They're field goals that he should be making. He knows he should have made those. He was 1 for 3 on field goals. Of course, the missed field goal mattered. Ohio State fans are right. If it wouldn't have been for missed field goals, Georgia would not have won this game by 1 point if it weren't for missed field goals. They're exactly right. Because if Georgia had made those 2 field goals, instead of being up by 1, they'd have been up by 7, and Ohio State wouldn't even have been attempting a field goal at the end. They would have had to score a touchdown. Of course, Georgia missing those 2 field goals mattered. The reality is, Georgia's 2 or 3 touchdowns better than Ohio State. But Ohio State fans are right. The referees, injuries, and special teams is the reason Ohio State lost this game by 1. Georgia should have won by 17.